And I'm live. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Akiba and I am a teacher turned homeschool mom. Today I wanted to talk about why you should not be homeschooling during this coronavirus pandemic. And I'm not talking to the people who have already been homeschooling and this is just a continuation for them. I'm talking specifically to those parents who have had their children kind of thrust back at home with them and now they're trying to figure all this stuff out. My first thought, I'm going to tell you why I feel like you really don't need to be homeschooling. And then I'm going to tell you what you can do instead. And I'm doing this video because I know myself sometimes I can have a lot of anxieties around these things. And I know people are just dealing with a lot of stuff. And you might be seeing like these people on social media posting like homeschool day or whatever. And you're like, oh, should I be doing that? I'm going to give you some real truth. The first thing is, it is March. What day is it specifically? We're like in the middle of March. And I'm going to be honest with you, most schools by March, your kids aren't really learning that much more new material. Because first of all, if it's a public school, which most children go to public school, they are about to begin testing. Testing normally begins end of March and goes through May. Now, testing generally takes about a week, even as young as the third grade. If they're older, it might take longer. So there's generally a week of testing. What we do those 3 weeks behind, here's how you're going to see the material on the test. And we're kind of reviewing everything they've learned. And then that week after the test is kind of like you need to take, because it's like testing season comes about and then kids aren't really doing too much learning of new material. Then there's spring break, which is another week. So now we're at 6 weeks where they're not really learning anything anyway. Then there's the 2 weeks before school closes where we're definitely not teaching anything. Everyone's head is out the door on their vacation. So that's practically 8 weeks of instruction, right? So now we've got probably maybe 4 weeks left of that your child would have been. The important material that your child learned this school year was put at the beginning of the year. So starting in August, September, we're teaching the really important stuff for that grade, right? Why? Because it's harder, it takes longer to teach, and we're going to have to constantly review it. Let's say it's fourth grade and we're doing long division. You start with long division early in the year, and then we're constantly talking about it throughout the rest of the year. Now, fourth graders also learn a little bit about geometry in terms of rays and angles and things like that. That we put towards the end of the year, which would be like now. Some things even we push until May. Not that they're no, or they might know anyway. Looking at Brain Pop, or also they're going to review that again next year. So for all real purposes, the school year is over. Like as a teacher, I'm like, March, they're not going back to school for the rest of the year. So what? They've already basically learned everything. So you're teaching a child, period. Right? Because even as a teacher, if you guys have watched my videos for a while, you know teaching can be very stressful, but teachers do have to de-stress and then go back into work, right? Sometimes we have to take a few days off. We're like, I'm going to see you guys on Friday. It's Monday. I just can't do it this week, because you'll start to teach children in a way that's a little bit hostile, right? So why would you want to be teaching a child something in the midst of a crisis when kids really, they know what's going on, but how they react to the situation is based on how you react. So if you're teaching them something and you're getting frustrated because teaching is frustrating in general, but you're also frustrated because you're worried about if you're going to get your job back. People have been laid off. You're worried about how you're going to make money. You're worried about all this other stuff. You're worried about if your older relatives are going to pass away. That's all going to be pushed onto that child, and they're going to pick up on that. Not the best time to be saying, now I'm your teacher, here's how it's going to be home learning, because they're absolutely going to hate it. And you definitely don't want your child to be a hater of education. You want them to be a lifelong learner. Third thing that can kind of take a weight off of your shoulders, if you were thinking about homeschooling anyway, the first thing that many homeschoolers do when they start to homeschool is de-school, or you're supposed to. Recognize now that your kids are like, that's not how we do it at school, or at school we have this routine and the teacher does this and that and blah, 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 blah. Because they're young, they don't know that, okay, this is mom, this is dad. I know best now. We're doing it this way because we're at home. Believe me, trust me. They're not going to trust you on that. You have to deprogram their mind. So when we are bringing kids home from school, let's say we decide we're going to start homeschooling in like September or something, you can use the summer to deschool. Some people do that, but sometimes the deschooling has to continue into the school year, because once we get into September, they're like, okay, they realize summer is over. They feel like they're supposed to be at a desk doing something and then transitioning from classes. So what we do with them is absolutely nothing. We tell them, you can explore whatever you want. What do you want to do today? Do you want to go to the park today? Do you want to come along with me as I work today? Do you want to sit in your room and read about birds today? Do you want to play video games? Okay, fine. And then we gradually introduce them into the type of homeschooling environment that we want. So if next school year, guys, let's be honest, 2 weeks out of school is not going to do anything. We're probably done for the rest of the year, the entire country, mostly. If you were deciding on doing that, you were going to have to deschool anyway. So just chill. Just let them do absolutely nothing, right? Now, what could you do? Are an Uber driver, which I don't even think Uber drivers are working right now, but they don't obviously have to come along with you, but you can tell them about your job, show them how it works, tell them to track you using GPS so they know where you are. If you are a doctor, let them know, talk to them about what's going on and how you guys are trying to solve the problem. And if you own your own business, tell them, hey, help me make an advertising poster for my business. Whether they're 5 years old or 15-year-old, they can do that. Pizza. And we're like, you imagine you're at home and you order a pizza. Your mom wants this, your sister wants that, right? We're creating all these fake situations, and they're going to pick up a lot of skills, a lot of new vocabulary. For me as a teacher, I can always tell, like, when I look back on my brightest students, I know that they participate heavily in what their parents are doing. So they could just be nosy kids, or their parents are just really into like talking with them. Sometimes they're only children, sometimes they're not. But they have this kind of adult knowledge and adult vocabulary. And they're like, oh yeah, my mom. And the parent does not have to be, making six figures. They just are really into telling their child what their business is. Like, let's say they're a grocer. They come home and they talk about work, and their child engages with that. And then they come to school and they know all of these vocabulary words that the other children don't, because their parents haven't been talking to them. So one thing I would just say is just talk with your child, invite them into you're absolutely crazy if you're like, do whatever you want, unless you have several acres of land to just put them outside. They're going to get bored. So what you can do, instead of saying, okay, let's do reading, music, math, gym, lunch, and having a schedule like that, pick one thing that you want to accomplish during this social distancing time. And for example, for me, I want to become a better photographer, let's say. So I can say, okay, kids, you know what? During this time, let's study photography. We're going to just be a family who knows about photography. Let's look it up online. Let's watch videos. Let's take pictures of each other, blah, blah, blah. Our one goal out of this is we're going to, know how to take good pictures with our cameras and with our phones and with our DSLRs, or some skill that they can use, and you'll also have fun doing it. Another example would be, let's say we're going to learn how to take care of our car. Maybe you have older kids. We're going to read through the manual. You guys are going to practice changing the oil. We're going to do all this stuff that we normally don't have time to do. Another example would just actually going to do that, right? But maybe we're going to learn about, hey, what would happen if, like, this situation is not scary, but let's say what were to happen if, like, really there were no food left. Like, what will we do to get food? What animals can we eat? What plants are safe to eat in our environment? Let's actually look that up. Let's go to our state's Department of Natural Resources and see what's out there in our community. Let's learn what indigenous people used to do here, right? And gain that type of knowledge during this time. And that can be a lot less stressful than trying to like find and stick to a curriculum for both parties. Now, the final thing is to just focus on having your child become a lifelong reader. And honestly, that's the number one question or complaint, I guess, that I get from parents, is that their child of any age does not like reading or struggles with reading. Maybe like 1 in 5 kids, I feel like, don't have that problem, but I feel like a majority do. So think about maybe researching how you can get your child interested in reading. Now, I already know you should read this book called The Book Whisperer and give them time to learn to become a avid reader. And then when they do get back into the school system, it'll be a lot easier for them. And plus that, if you just read, like, let's say it's a younger kid, you just read a book a day. Let's say it's a 3rd grader and they can read, I don't have any examples, those little chapter books a day or something like that. Or a 2nd grader and they're just reading like one of these a day, or an older kid and they're just reading 1 novel a week. They're going to gain a lot of knowledge, because honestly in school, a novel study might be a good month. They might be reading Jane Eyre for 4 weeks, when in reality it takes like 3 days to read that book. So if you just do that and just say, let's just read, let's just chill and read. The rest of the day, we'll do whatever. We'll, you're on your own. And let's just read. And I think they'll be very successful. So I hope this has been helpful for some people. I'm going to take a look at your comments over here. And I think you might be able to leave comments in the comment section, but I'm not sure. I told my children about the virus. They still don't understand the severity of it. We're chilling and shelter in place, and more states have also told people to stay at home. So why, that's a pretty big thing to tell people to shelter in place. It's a pretty big thing to have schools closed. And I think for older children, like for teenagers, especially like 19-year-olds, I myself found it was really helpful watching videos, YouTube videos on here about different subjects, particularly finance, and learning how this will. They're about to give out stimulus checks, right? That money doesn't come from nowhere. It has to come from somewhere. The U.S. government doesn't just have money. They get money from the taxpayers. It's not like a for-profit organization, right? So that money has to come from somewhere. So it's either going to come out of your check, like you're either going to be paying more taxes when this whole thing blows over, right, in order to cover that trillions of dollars that's going to people, or they're going to have to borrow money. And we've already have a lot of money that we borrow. Who do we generally borrow money from? China, Japan, other places, right? Do you think China's going to be willing to find out what's going on? That kind of can put things in perspective for them. Honestly, for my younger kids, you're asking just a question I was about to touch on. What would you do about a kindergartner? He loves to do his homework at school, but when he's at home with me, he doesn't like to do his homework. He doesn't like to read books, and sometimes it's kind of DM. Oh, well, I was going to say for younger kids, they might not even need to know what's going on. Like my girls, it's a work at home, doesn't like to read. Then I would figure out what they do like to do. Ask the child, well, what do you want to do? Do you like to learn about? A lot of people do child-directed learning. So, for example, if he wants to learn about dinosaurs, oh my gosh, I just did this really fun activity. I'm going to post it on my Instagram page about dinosaurs. It's not only about dinosaurs, it's about all animals, but it's just really fun. I would say just do really fun home learning stuff, and don't worry about if they don't like doing work at home, because that's completely natural, and that's exactly why we deschool. When I first started, my sister brought her kids home to homeschool, right? Children who, like, one of them, like, they all did very well in school, but they were really unmotivated at home because they were like, this is a new environment. What is this? So we had to deschool for a while to teach them, like, hey, this is what it is now. And then they kind of got it, and they kind of accepted it and got back into the schooling thing. So I really wouldn't be worried if you have a child at home who does not want to work at home, especially a younger one, but even the older ones, because it's just new to them. And they're not Americans, not me. And it's hard for them. I've noticed that a lot of people are so slow to respond. And for me, I'm like, this is pretty normal to be at home with kids running around and trying to do work. But if it's hard for adults to transition into working from home, it should be hard for kids to transition into schooling from home too. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. That's it for today, guys. Yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know. You're welcome. Bye-bye.